The opinions and views expressed in this podcast do not reflect the views of HTT Media Group. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, lovelies, and thanks again for tuning in to Listen Closely. If you haven't already, please follow me on Facebook, where I'll be posting all things related to the topics of each episode, as well as merchandise and many other different things. So without further ado, please sit back, relax, and listen closely. All right, so the past two episodes, we talked about the All of Texas Ghost Train and the Hardin County Courthouse. So today we just kind of want to take it a little bit slower and talk about our experiences, what we may or may not believe, and, just kind of lay back. Y'all get to know us a little bit more. If you hear any background noises, we are at the Studio in the Pines, which is located inside Frenchie's Coffee House, so you might be hearing some background noise, but hopefully it's not too bad.
Yeah.
All right, so first and foremost, your main question to you is, do you believe in ghosts, paranormal, whatever you want to call it?
Absolutely. And, obviously I was a little shy at the beginning, and I think the shyness has to do with me being so excited about this episode because
you have a story, and you want to tell it.
I have a very big story. Obviously, last time we talked to you about Junior. We gave you that name.
You gave us the name Junior and nothing else.
Brief little backstory. I've actually been visited by apparitions 3 times in my life. And this is why I believe in ghosts. To answer your question, I do. So when I was growing up, I had an imaginary friend like most kids did. His name was Junior. Now, Junior was a little older than me. He was probably in his mid-20s.
That's actually interesting. I mean, we've been married 2 years. I've known you since high school, and I've heard of Junior. I just never knew that he was 20 or 20-ish.
Yeah. I would say probably in between 20 and 25, somewhere in there.
See, that's crazy because when you always talk about Junior, you always make it sound like he's a kid your age. Y'all played together, and he's a kid.
Right. So he actually did. We played together. We played he loved playing the things that kids like to play, like hide and go seek, ring around the rosy, stuff like that. He loved doing that stuff, but he was a little older. So a little bit of backstory about me. My name is John Marble. I have one grandfather named John Marble. He was a John H. Marble. Right, and my name is John H. Marble. The only difference is his was Higman and mine is Henry.
Right.
And there's a story to that too. But anyways, so I never got to meet him. He died September the 23rd of 1988. I was born October 21st of 1988. Wow. So there was only about a month in between
just barely missed you.
Yes. And so they named me after him because back then he would be the one to, back then, this is before they could tell what sex the baby was, what gender the baby was when it, came out. And so when my mother was pregnant, he walked up to her and he grabbed her stomach and said, "That's my grandson." And
so he knew.
He knew.
He just had this feeling this is my grandson.
And my mom and dad, of course, you don't know that. You never know what it's going to be.
Oh no, some people know.
Because at the time they had already had 1 girl and 2 boys.
Right.
The
odds were in his favor for being another boy.
Right. So when I was born, that's why they named me after him. Well, anyway, so back to Junior. We one day we were at my grandmother's house. And I was about 6 or 7 years old at this time. Mm-hmm. And so my grandmother, who we affectionately called Nanny, was looking through some old memories, like
So like some old photos
and stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And so I went over there because I wanted to see what she was looking at.
Yeah.
Well, when I did, I pointed at a picture, and my mom was standing right there, and I said, "Oh my gosh, that's Junior."
So like the picture was of like a 20-something-year-old?
Yes. So it was of my grandfather in his military uniform.
Okay. So I mean pretty young
Right.
when he got
Yeah.
in the military.
And my grandmother looked at me and said, "What did you say?" And I said, "That's Junior. That's the boy. That's the guy I play with. My imaginary friend. That's Junior." Freaked everybody out.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, your parents, I'm sure, have heard plenty like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just playing with Junior. Or,
Yeah.
Oh, me and Junior did this. I mean, all kids do that.
Yeah.
So the fact that now they're like, hey, that's a picture of Junior.
That's his grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
And
like, what do you
he's-
mean that's Junior? Like you've never seen him before that, like a picture
Right.
really. I mean, you might have, but as a kid, like you just kind of throw it like, oh, hey, this used to be your grandparents, or this used to be so and so. I mean, we all do that when we're kids.
Right.
Like, they show us pictures and we're like, okay, yeah, that doesn't mean much to me, unfortunately. But that one stuck out. Like, that picture, his military picture,
Right. And
like,
that
you were
wasn't
like, that is definitely 100% Junior.
right. And that wasn't the only time that I say he has ever visited me. So the next story, when I got out of high school, I was doing some college stuff, and I was working at Whataburger at the time.
The place to eat at
The
Texas.
place to eat in Texas, right?
Yeah. If you ever come to Texas, if you're not in Texas, but you come to Texas, you better go to a Whataburger.
Right. And so I'd worked there for about 2 years. And honestly, so one of the things about me is that I deal with, I've always dealt with depression and stuff. Mm-hmm. So I was really down on myself at this point in my life. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. I was working at Whataburger, which to me, I mean, it was a great job. It paid the bills, but it was kind of, it was a start.
Yeah.
I wanted to. I'm big about. I'm real antsy, so I wanted to see what was next. And so I couldn't, and that kind of got me down. Well, I worked the graveyard shift, which the graveyard shift at Whataburger is from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Ooh.
So
you saw all the drunk and
yes, all of the drunks coming from
craziness.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
or the quiet. I mean,
but the cool thing about the graveyard shift is usually between the hours of like 3 p.m. and 7 p.m.
3 a.m. and 7 a.m.
Or 3 a.m. and 7 a.m.
Okay.
Sorry, you don't really on a week not on a weekend, but on a weekday, you don't really see anybody.
Right. Maybe everybody's sleeping for work.
Yeah, maybe one or two people come in.
Yeah.
Because they get up early for work or whatever, but you rarely see anybody, and that's kind of the time we start doing our prep and getting everything ready,
for the day.
Breakfast. You
right.
know? So this was a Tuesday night.
Okay.
It was about 2:00 in the morning.
All right.
Nobody was in there. Nobody was in the drive-thru. My manager was in the office doing paperwork. I was up at the counter taking orders because you only need one person up there at that time because there's nobody there.
Nobody in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, I'm sitting there and I see this truck pull into the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And so lights are blaring. So he turns off. He comes inside.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's walking in, I'm sitting there and I'm talking to him and I'm like, "Hey, how you doing, sir? How can I help you?" And he says, "Well, I want this food and this food." And so he sits down and he eats. He's very quiet.
Oh, so he sits down. And
yeah, he's sitting
eats.
in the restaurant eating.
Okay. And the other people see him.
Well, there's nobody else in there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, your manager's in the office.
Manager's in the office.
Manager stuff.
Right. And so, and she doesn't say anything. And that's what kind of first tipped me off because usually when there's cameras.
Right.
All over Whataburger.
Yeah.
And if she sees somebody drive up, she'll usually yell out, "Hey, you got this?" And I'll say, "Yeah, I got it."
Okay.
So.
But she was just still doing her paperwork.
Right. She was doing her paperwork. And so I fix the man's food. He sits down, he eats. He gets up, he thanks me for my food and stuff, and then he leaves. Well, then as he goes out to his truck, he comes back in and he says, "Hey, my truck is dead. Do you have any jumper cables to jump me off?" Well, at Whataburger, we had a policy about, don't be outside past certain times, especially during certain times of year.
Yeah.
Because they don't want you to get you robbed or mugged or something like that.
So,
Safety. Yeah. And so, for some reason, I said, you know what? Yeah, I do. Because at the time, I had a black F-150 extended cab, one of my favorite trucks, and I had some jumper cables on the back. So I said, I'll tell you what. Let me go get my truck. I'll come around, pull up, and I'll get you jumped off. No problem.
You're a big, strong, strapping man that
right.
you think, you know.
I'm not worried about anybody.
Yeah, it's fine.
So, especially since this is right outside of high school and I hadn't gained the 60 pounds yet. So, but anyways, so I'm outside and I jump the dude off. And while it's kind of charging, I let it charge for a minute. I'm talking to him and I say, by the way, and before I can get it out, he looks at me and he says, I know who you are. And I kind of stop and I'm like, okay, this is kind of creepy. Yeah, so I said, oh, you know who you are? He said, yeah, John, I know who you are. And he said, I just want to let you know that everything in your life is going to be okay. And that you've got people watching out for you. And I was like, all right.
Weirdo, like, knows my name.
Yeah, like.
Giving me life advice.
Freaking me out. So, finally, we get his truck charged. He's very polite. He leaves, and I go back in, and the manager is standing there with the confused look on her face. And I'm like, what's wrong? She goes, what were you doing outside? And I kind of look at her and said, I have no idea what you're talking about. What do you mean I was jumping that guy off? He needed to jump for his truck. He goes,
hey.
You were jumping off who? And I kind of looked at her. I was like,
the vehicle that was outside, right?
Yeah. I was like, what are you talking about? She goes, John, I've been watching the cameras for the last 10 minutes. I saw you get in your truck, pull around, put your jumper cables on your end, and hang your jumper cables on the side of your truck. There was not another vehicle next to you.
So you're just, going through motions and like nobody was there.
And I looked at her and I was like, don't mess with me right now.
Yeah,
I was freaking out. I was like, don't you dare mess with me. I just went outside. I talked to this guy. He knew who I was.
Yeah, had a creepy conversation. And you're coming in and now you're telling me.
So she shows me the camera. Sure enough, that's exactly what I did. There was nobody there. There's nobody who even walked into the restaurant.
So, like, nobody came in at any point? Nobody ordered food?
No.
Nobody did nothing?
No. I cooked food.
Well, yeah, you cooked food, but, like, they
saw
nobody.
But I cooked it and laid it on the table, and when I looked over there, the food was still over there.
Huh. But you saw him eating it.
Yeah.
Like, you saw him eating it. Saw him finish it. He was like, hey, thanks for my food, left, came back in, said, hey, my truck's not working. Can you jump me off?
Right.
And then you went out there, jumped him off. Well, you thought you were, but you just kind of laid the cables.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I'm talking to my mother about it, and I tell him the story, and she looks at me and she goes, because this guy was an older guy, okay? And an older guy that I'd never recognized. Okay. And I was telling him about how this guy was built. I was like, yeah, he's about 6'3", 6'4", looked like, probably about 280, 300 pounds. Big dude, and he had this beard and stuff. And she goes, huh. Once again, let's consult the family photos. She brings it out. Let's go back
to the thing.
She shows me another picture of my grandfather when he was older.
Is this the man that you saw?
Absolutely. I'm just in shock. And of course, I couldn't recognize him because he had a beard,
right. And all the photos you've seen were kind of clean shaved and young,
which he looked completely different when he was older.
Well, yeah, I mean, different things have happened during that time.
He looked completely different, and so, yeah,
But I mean, it kind of seems like he was the man that you needed at the certain times in your life. Like when you were younger, you needed the younger, playful, fun man. So that's what he presented himself as.
Well, so the big story behind that, and this is my grandmother. My great-grandmother was, she was Catholic, but she also did a lot in the, I don't want Creole, the Creole, region and stuff, because that's where they were from.
Right.
And so she told my grandmother one time, or I think it was my mom, I can't remember which one, but she told them, for a soul to be born, a soul must die.
Right. I mean, that's a pretty
Right.
common
And so
thought.
she believes that basically that as I was growing up, when I needed him most, he was my guardian angel. Like, he was always there for
Oh,
me.
yeah.
And that's, and I agree with that. I believe that. Especially people who I think that are named after their grandparents.
Yeah.
Like,
or someone who's passed.
Right.
I mean, whether it be grandparents or
Right.
a sister, sibling that passed away too
Yeah.
early. I mean,
So
you have that connection.
to answer that question, yes, I most definitely believe in ghosts.
Okay.
So what about you?
So I believe that there are things we can't explain. I've never personally been visited like you were with Junior. I mean,
Right.
I've never had that kind of experience, but I did have one, and you might actually might have forgotten about this one. But I did have this experience that kind of shook me a little bit, and you will remember when I start telling this because, I was just like, oh my gosh, what? Like, it's a really weird random dream. Mm-hmm. So, and it actually happened in a dream. So it was, I don't know how many months before we got married. It was pretty close to when we were about to get married.
About 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with this one. So it was, it was close. You get in that wedding. Your mind's on wedding. Like, you're wedding. Where's the dress? Where's this? Make sure that's correct. Like, you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's and making sure everything's supposed to go how it is.
Right.
So I wake up one morning and I just have it's not really uneasy. It was just kind of like a peaceful feeling. Like, I can't really explain it. It was just okay. Like, I had that dream. It was kind of weird, but it didn't shake me or anything. So at the time, I was talking to you and your parents actually, and I told you, I was like, hey, I just kind of had this kind of weird, I don't know what to make of it dream. And in that dream, we were getting married. Like, we were about to get married.
Right.
And one of your relatives. I didn't know who she was. I just knew she was obviously related to you because I know my relatives.
Right.
So it was obviously one of your relatives. She came up to me, and of course, me being the bride, I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, anxiety and making sure everything's right. You're excited that you're getting married to the man of your dreams, and so you're pumped. But this lady comes to me, and she's just smiling. I mean, the smile is so warm. It's like, if your own mother was smiling at you with, those beautiful, loving eyes. And so she's just smiling at me. And, I'm like, oh, hey, how you doing? Making sure you're comfortable with the wedding. And, you found your seat. You're good. I mean, that's everybody at their wedding. Yes, you want your wedding to be about you, but you want to make sure your guests are good.
Right.
And she was good. I want to say we were close to dancing, or we had just done our dance after that. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. I can't remember anymore. It's been a while. It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
But she came back to me and she was just like, I want to let you know that, you make them so happy. And I was like, okay.
Which you do, by the way.
I was like, yeah, thank you. But I was like, thank you. I don't know which relative you are, but, thank you. And I'm glad you could make it. And,
Right.
I'm trying to be a good host. I'm like, thank you for coming out and, being with us on our wedding. And she was just like, I wouldn't miss it. I would never miss this. And I was like, okay, thanks. And so in the dream, I'm kind of like, who was that? Like, obviously I just gained a whole bunch of relatives. So I don't know which one that was.
Right.
So I go to my husband and his brother, Justin's wife, Adrian, in my dream. And I'm like, hey, who is this lady that I was just talking to? I'm like, what are you talking about? Describe her. Where is she at? And I'm like, well, I don't really see her right now. But, I described her. I was like, she's a relatively shorter, rounder lady with some kind of curly hair. She's, kind of young, but not, too young, obviously.
Right.
I was like, I don't know if maybe it's your aunt or somebody. I was like, I don't really know. She gave me that kind of aunt vibe or kind of grandma-y vibe, somewhere in that kind of a line.
Right.
And y'all are like, I don't know. We didn't see you talking to anybody. We don't know. And I was like, okay. And then finally, I believe it was Adrian in the dream. She was kind of like, oh, that's so-and-so.
Called her Granny.
Yeah, I think she said something like that. Like, oh, that's just so-and-so. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, I still don't really, the connection's not there yet.
Right.
Because we just got married. But, whatever. So I was like, okay. And that's when I woke up. And I was like, huh. I don't know who that is. Like, I've heard stories, being, knowing your family and stuff.
Right.
Like, I've heard stories, so I was like, whatever. But when I woke up, I could not remember that name. I was like, I know, like, I remembered she was like an aunt kind of feel, grandma kind of feel, but like, she smiled at you with the warmest smile, and it was like just a mom smile. Like, you know
Right.
those smiles, like I'm just so happy to see you kind of smile. So, I'm telling my husband this. Well, at the time, not my husband.
Yeah.
My fiance at the
Financing.
time. And his mom kind of overhears it, and she's like, hold on, wait a minute. And you start smiling.
Yeah.
Like, you're just beaming because you know who exactly I'm talking about. Your mom kind of
Yeah.
listens in, and she's like, hold on, wait a minute. What's she look like? So I try to describe her, and I try to tell y'all about her smile and her eyes and, like, how just warm and, like, good feeling they are. And that's
Now-
when, like, y'all know.
Disclaimer: Bobby's never seen a picture at this time of my grandmother.
No,
doesn't even know what she looks like.
I just knew it was some relative.
Yeah.
So, like his story, his mom goes and whips out a picture.
Yeah.
And she's like, hey, is this the picture? Is this, someone who looks like that lady? And I was like, yeah, actually, that looks exactly like her, except she was younger than this picture.
Right.
Like, this picture is her, obviously, like, in her, like, 60s or so.
Right.
And when I saw the lady, she was, like, maybe in her 30s, 40s,
Right.
barely 50s, but I'd say, like, 30s and 40s. So, it's like, yeah, that's kind of like her. I mean, pretty much to a T.
And I think we actually showed you a picture of her younger with Pawpaw, and you were like, "Yeah, that's her."
Yeah. Like, y'all saw him. Yeah, she was like, okay, hold on. Went and got another picture. And
Yeah.
she's like, hey, is this one? Yes, that is the lady.
Right.
And she passed away. When she passed away?
I
I mean, it wasn't
want to
recent
say
by
it
all
was
means.
2016.
Yeah, so 2016, give or take.
Yeah.
And we were married in 2019.
Right.
So obviously, I have not really ever seen this lady.
Right.
Like, I've never seen her. We've never had a conversation. I've never, nothing. And yet, I was like, hey, some relative.
Right.
And it's not until you saw that picture, I was like, hold on. Yeah, that's the lady I saw, just a little younger. Show me another picture. Oh, crap. That is the lady.
Right.
So, I mean, it wasn't a junior, like, she flat out was talking to me. It was in my dream.
So that was kind of my grandmother basically affirming.
Like, letting both of us know,
Yes.
like, hey.
Hey, this is the one.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we've told, like, all of your family just about, like, everyone, your brothers and their wives, and they're all like, yeah, like, that sounds
Right.
exactly like something she would do and say.
yeah, absolutely.
Like, I described her glasses that she was
Yeah.
wearing, and y'all like, yeah, that was her.
yeah. But
Like-
so yeah, that's a pretty cool pretty cool part.
And I mean, like, I've never really seen a ghost, and I've never really done anything like that, but I'm smart enough to know not to dabble with stuff.
Right.
See, that is one of the key things with me. I do not
Yes.
dabble. So, like, I might not believe, like, say, certain witchcraft is real, but I'm not dumb enough to go and poke holes and try and, like, oh, Ouija boards aren't real. Let me play with it. No, I'm not that type of person.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm respectful for all beliefs and all things.
Right.
I mean, that kind of goes along with, me being Hispanic. We have a lot of ghost stories, urban legends, and
Boy, do you.
Whew, yes, we do.
If you don't believe me, go visit Grandma.
Yes, I mean, I could spend, oh God, forever on the different stories, and I might do that. This podcast is kind of more focused towards the East Texas, our area kind of thing, but I mean, I might venture down to South Texas and tell a little bit of their stuff, and maybe around the country.
We should actually just go to South Texas and visit with Grandma and let her on the show so she can tell us.
But see,
all
they're
the-
scarier when they're in Spanish. Like, they're scary in English, and you're like, holy crap, that's scary. But in Spanish, it's like a whole nother level.
Right. So,
Like-
and obviously you get from the South Texas that, my wife is of Mexican descent and her grandmother does speak full Spanish, as her father does as well.
Mm-hmm.
And she tells me, so we went down there and I don't like hearing ghost stories from Grandma because they're freaky.
Oh, yeah, they'll scare you. And then she's like, okay, let's go outside and go for
Yeah,
a walk.
yeah,
At
let's
9
go for a
o'clock at
walk.
night. Like, let's go tour the neighborhood. I kind of want to walk. You're like, no, I don't want to walk. I don't want to go anywhere.
And I'm more of a sissy than Bobby is.
Yeah.
So
oh, yeah. You're
I'm just,
you don't want to go anywhere.
yeah.
You're like, let's go during the day, and okay, it's starting to
Yeah.
get like 6 o'clock. Let's head out. We can't spend too much time.
We can't be out at Bragg Road past dark. Like that's just,
So yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of things that have happened within my family that they've experienced things, they've seen things, they've, encountered stuff. And I can go on and on. I might have to dedicate some episodes for just their stories because they can get pretty crazy. Me personally, I've only have that one story. The only other one I have, it's not really a ghost story. It's more of a Mexican thing. Like if you've been around Mexicans or like Hispanic people, you understand mal ojo. Like that is the evil eye.
Yeah.
You know about that. And the only thing with that I've experienced is, I went to South Texas when I was younger, got super, super sick after we went to Mexico just to visit. Back then, you didn't have any, where's your, passport and stuff. Like, you can just go up and down all one. So we were just shopping around, came back to my grandmother's house, got super sick. Like, I felt horrible. And it was just a real quick, like, I was great and then not great.
Yeah.
Took a bunch of medicine, tried to sleep it off. Nothing was working. So my grandmother, being my grandmother, she grabbed an egg and she's like, come here. I was like, what are you talking about? What are you going to do with an egg? Like, I'm not hungry. I'm sick and I just want to go to bed. And she was like, no, stand here, lift your arms out. Like, I don't know what you call this, where you're like, your arms are just out completely. And she's like, just stand there. And I said, okay. And she started to pray over me.
Yeah.
And would rub the egg on me and just she would silently, not silently, quietly pray over me. So she would just pray and pray and pray. And then finally, she cracked open the egg and put it in a glass and then put it on top of her fridge. And then, they let me go. I was like, this lady's freaking nuts. I mean, she just rubbed me with the weird egg and was saying some stuff. Now, obviously, she was saying it in Spanish. And at the time, I didn't know as much Spanish. So all I hear is, like, I don't know what she's saying. So I go back, lay down. 30 minutes, an hour later, I feel fine.
Right.
Like, I'm completely better.
Yeah.
So I go back out. I'm like, hey, guys, I'm fine. Me being crazy, wild kid, I'm great. I bounced back really fast. And so they go and look at the egg that's, on top of the fridge. And they pull down the glass. And the egg, like, practically cooked.
Yeah.
From what I remember them telling me. Like, I vaguely remember it. And I don't remember exactly how the egg looked, but the egg, like, you could tell, like, yeah, it was crazy stuff. And they were like, oh, yeah, she had the evil eye. And so she had prayed over me with the egg to get it out of me.
Right.
And that's what caused me to be sick.
Don't they have to, like, rub it on your skin first or something?
Yeah. So, like, what they do is she prays, like, I believe she was saying the Lord's Prayer.
Okay.
And on top of that, she was rubbing the egg and the sign of the cross all over my body.
Okay.
So she would kind of, just get the egg and cross
so all
everywhere.
the evil goes into the egg.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's kind of
which is what causes it to cook.
Right. It's kind of a Catholic /
right. Kind of like my family. You got like the Catholic and the Creole.
Yeah, like they're very intertwined, especially in the Hispanic culture. Like they're very intertwined. Like it's kind of an interesting thing to see.
But yeah. So that's kind of why we like doing this kind of stuff. Now, like she kind of said, we don't dabble. Like,
oh no,
no. When I was growing up, my father always told us a story. Like, we couldn't watch scary movies in our house because my father would be like, "Hey, if you let the devil in your house, he'll stay there." Like, and so we never really got to watch the scarier movies and stuff like that, like Poltergeist and stuff. Now, did we still watch them? Yes, we did, but it just wasn't at my father's house. Like, but yeah. So we, the mundane, the strange, the stuff that you don't normally talk about kind of excites us. Like because we've been there, we've seen this stuff. Like I said, I've seen premonitions of my grandfather and never even knew it. She's done the egg thing. She's seen my grandmother in a dream that she's never even met. Like wouldn't know what she looked like. So that's kind of why we do what we do.
There's some weird stuff going around.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
What my family always said, you may not believe in it, but it definitely believes in you.
Absolutely.
So we don't mess around.
Absolutely.
Like, and actually the first little house that we had, it was like really creepy and just like we were fighting all the time and just like add-ins. I whipped out my sage?
Yeah, white sage.
My white sage, and I got my Lord's Prayer out. I prayed over that house, and then we were fine. I was sick all the time too. Remember that?
Yeah.
Whew, that was a bad time.
It was funny because when we bought our house, Like, the first thing my wife went out and did was bought white sage. And
Well, but you also told me, don't try and throw me under the bus. You were like, hey, buy that white sage, and
Yes.
I want you in there first.
Absolutely.
Like, pray over this house first.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. Because he saw, the previous place we were at, it was bad.
And it's kind of weird because she knows all the prayers and stuff because she grew up Catholic. She still is Catholic. I am not Catholic. So I'm like, all right, so you go in first because you know all the prayers and you know how to do everything, and I don't. So
It's not like I really know. I'm just literally saying the Lord's Prayer,
Right.
and then I'm just openly praying. Please bless this house, Lord. Things like that. It's not like I have a book of how to pray over this.
No,
or
she does not.
How
I can attest
to
that.
exorcise this demon. I don't know any of that.
Actually, if either of us, I think I would have more because I have more religious books than you do.
You do. You have way more than I do.
But anyways,
this was just a fun getting to know us and a little bit of our ghost stories. And
now you know who Junior is.
You know who Junior is. And this one was kind of a little bit longer, I think.
Yeah.
Just a little bit longer. But, it's good to know who you're talking to.
Right.
Or who you're listening to, rather.
Absolutely.
Be like, why do these jokers think they know what they know?
Yeah.
We've experienced some stuff. Sure, you've experienced some stuff.
Yeah.
And, we also want to hear from our listeners.
Yeah. If you've experienced some stuff.
What have you experienced? Let me know, because I'm always looking for content.
Right.
I have my stories, and I have the stories that I, stumble across, such as, the Olive Ghost Train and stuff like that. But these stories are also very hard to find around this area. I have one that literally is told by mouth. You cannot find it on the internet at all. And that's going to be coming up. And that one is a little bit harder, so it might be, a couple episodes down.
And like you said before, maybe you're one of those people who you have a story, but you don't want your name put out there. We will use discretion. So if you ask us, say you don't want your name put out there, we'll change your name on the show.
Yeah, I will definitely change your name. If you want to be called, John Doe, I can call you John Doe. That kind of sounds like you're a missing person or whatever. But, I will definitely change your name. Change, if you're like, hey, it happened in my house.
We're always
I'm not
here
going to
to
give your
protect
address.
the parties.
Yeah, I'm never going to give any addresses unless it pertains to the story.
Yeah, we have. If you noticed in the past 3 episodes, we haven't even told you where we live.
I believe I said Silsby once.
Did you? Oh,
yeah.
I didn't. Well, you don't know where I live personally, so.
Oh no, personally, you have no idea.
Yeah.
I will say that we live here in Silsby, Texas.
Yes.
But that's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I don't want y'all coming knocking on my door saying, hey, I had a story to tell you.
Yeah.
At 3 o'clock in the morning.
I don't personally mind if you knock on my door. Just know that it's probably not going to be a nice conversation if it's 3 in the morning.
Yeah. In Texas, we're kind of locked and loaded.
That's right.
But yeah, definitely let me hear your stories. It could be a personal story of, you're haunted by a ghost. Or it could be, hey, there's this road out in the pasture, some crazy stuff's happened. There's some UFOs, or even if there was a true crime that happened that you know about in this area, whether it be your personal relatives or even a story that really interests you. I know one that's coming up is going to be dealing with the Houston area.
Yeah.
That's not too far away. It hits close to home.
Yeah.
So let us know. You can always contact us at HTT Listen Closely on Facebook. You can also email us, httsilsby@gmail.com. Or you can find the website, www.httsilsby.com.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening, guys, and y'all have a wonderful week.
All right.
Anyways, that's all from us today. I hope you enjoyed today's topic and that you always listen closely.